up, folks? Greetings, Electric Docs TV. It's your boy, Mr. Breaks here. I'm here with the legends, of course, Dr. Amsoon, Dr. Amun. They are the Electric Docs. Once again, you're watching Electric Docs TV. Now, as you know, it's the month of July, and it's traditionally Fibroid Awareness Month. But as you know, we've proclaimed this as Fibroid Elimination Month. And throughout the month of July, we're going to, be dedicating a lot of time to really going through and walking through a lot of the topics that are covered in the Fibroid Elimination Bible, the book that's been responsible for helping a lot of people not just come to terms with their fibroids, but it's a pathway to eliminate the fibroids and obviously long-term how to eradicate the root causes and help to eliminate the fibroids coming back. So without further ado, this topic today we're going to be talking about hysterectomies, what hysterectomies are, who's having them, why they're being done, right? And a lot of the root causes around that as well. And of course, we've got Dr. Amsoon, Dr. Amun here to talk about that. So docs, welcome once again.
Hey. Thank you for having us.
Roger that. So listen, let's delve straight in. Hysterectomies. What are hysterectomies? Please give us an overview on that.
Well, hysterectomies are the total removal of the uterus. It also can include the cervix, fallopian tubes, ovaries, the fundus. So basically a woman's womb. It's the removal surgically of a woman's womb. And there are, you can have partial hysterectomies where it's just the uterus that's removed and the cervix is left intact.
The ovaries, the fallopian tubes.
There are also other procedures like oophorectomy where just the ovaries are taken out.
Right.
So, basically, in a nutshell, the removal of the womb.
Wow. So it's obviously a surgical procedure. It sounds obviously quite drastic. So
it's a major surgery.
Yeah,
absolutely. Not to be taken lightly. It's a very serious surgery, and we're gonna we'll go into the implications.
Yeah. So being such a serious surgery, I'm assuming, and that it's something. I guess it's a last course of action. It's a last result. Why go to hysterectomy?
It should absolutely be a last resort. Us being we're herbalists, we're nutrient therapists. We like dealing with things holistically, and it should always we do not recommend surgery for anything unless life-threatening. Right. It's an emergency. So blatantly last resort. Don't do it.
Yeah.
However, it's not. It's really pushed to the upfront as one of the first alternatives. And one of the scary things about it is that they're not informing the women about other alternatives that they might be able to have to proceed going forward with this hysterectomy. And that's what I think is very scary. And we'll address that later on.
Sure. So, and maybe segueing from that point as well. So, hysterectomies, it should be the last resort for a lot of, I'm guessing, female reproductive health issues, right? To totally basically eradicate the womb from the body. But why are they prescribing so many of the hysterectomies? Why are they leapfrogging the other solutions to go straight to hysterectomies?
Well, first of all, we have to look at, what are typical scenarios for hysterectomy?
Right.
Things like uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, cancers which
cervical cancer.
If somebody elects to go with surgery to remove the cancer, then that's a procedure. But with hysterectomies, 90% of hysterectomies are not for cancer. Right. So only 10% of hysterectomies actually are performed like last resort. We got to remove it, else you could die.
Right.
So we're looking at non-malignant reasons, benign reasons, and it's usually because of tumorous growths like fibroids or other inflammation, cysts, and
endometriosis.
Anything that puts a woman's health at risk, not her life. And also if it's interfering with other organs, which could lead to serious injury or even death.
Right. So what I'm hearing as well is, and this comes up also often in discussions around the medical industry, of course, it's the cost, right? The financial side of this. So what's the typical cost of a hysterectomy? What does that mean to a,
When you look at the industry of surgery of hysterectomy is like a $5 billion industry.
Wow.
And each operation range anything from $10,000 to $12,000
per hysterectomy.
Right. So again, without sounding facetious, you could see why sometimes they're pushing this, or majority of the time, they're pushing this to the upfront in order for women and not disclosing the other alternatives that they may have, which is cheaper and also safer.
Right, which leads to an obvious question. So who's making the money from these hysterectomies? If they're pushing women to do that and not showing any alternatives, again, another assumption is
well, let's
someone's bagging someone.
All right,
right?
so let's. I think we might have jumped over one of the facts about hysterectomies. Over 600,000 hysterectomies are performed every year. 600,000 per year, and those are astronomical numbers. The United States, and we're just talking about the United States. So let's make that clear. 600,000 performed in the United States. The United States leads the world for hysterectomies. Even though this is supposed to be, the United States is supposed to be the leader of the free world, and that you would think it
the best healthcare,
have the best healthcare and whatever, but it leads the world. But there's more hysterectomies performed in the United States than the rest of the world combined.
Wow.
So that's how, and 300,000, over 300,000, over 50% of those are performed for fibroids, which is why we're so passionate about this whole movement that we have going, our program and the movement.
And 75% of those are unnecessary. And one of the scariest parts, they don't even follow.
Wait, say that again. Say that slowly.
75% of that number of 600,000 plus are not even necessary.
They're not even necessary.
They're not even
so
necessary.
that's why we speak about, the alternative, the education. Women are being diagnosed with, benign conditions.
Right.
And there are a plethora of alternative of options for them to choose from. If they had education and they had the choice,
right, they would
opt for something else. But 75, you imagine, 3 out of 4 surgeries performed didn't need to be done.
That's catastrophic. And segueing from that also, so 75% of these procedures aren't necessary. But what are the side effects? What are the implications if a woman goes through a hysterectomy? Do they get up and walk away and back to life as normal? What are the long-term effects or implications of the procedure?
There have been a list of several dangerous health-risking side effects, such as blood clots, breathing disorders, heart failures, and then women just really losing their libido. The whole urge of being sexually active is now depleted, because what you have to understand, one of the things with the uterus is, and I say this all the time, is part of the endocrine system. It's a part of a gland that helps to monitor and regulate hormones, okay? So it's almost like having a chair or a table with 4 legs, and you take one of those legs away, there's no longer the table.
No longer
balances.
stability.
There's no stability. So a lot of these gynecologists will easily say, you've got a child, you've had a couple of children, you don't need that anymore.
Wow.
That is one of the scariest things you can hear from someone in that profession. Because again, you move that leg from the table's no longer stable, you can no longer you can't eat on it, you can't operate with what the table's supposed to do. The functionality of the table now is being disabled. That's what happens with a woman.
Dr. Amsi, you're going to say?
I was going to say, you said, once they have the surgery, can they just get up and walk away? Absolutely not. Women have to go into convalescence, right? They have to convalesce, meaning they have to rest, bed rest, for weeks, if not months. So I know when I was a child or when I was a teenager, which got me into endocrinology, my mum had a hysterectomy. I was around 13, maybe 14 years old, and it took her out. I had no knowledge of, she's going to hospital, all right, and that's the thing about black women, they believe their doctors so well that they'll, how many operations has, your mum had? That used to be a conversation we had. How many operations has your mum had? But the big one is the op. You see what I'm saying? And that is men, and, men have no idea what's going on, But these are conversations between women and their doctors. They don't even like to talk about it among themselves.
Right.
But again, my mum had fibroids and had the hysterectomy, right? And the convalescing is months. I missed out on my whole summer holiday away from school because I had to, I was at home catering to my mum. So I was listening to other children playing outside while I was helping my mum out, alongside that is, we're dealing with hormone replacement therapy. So there's the actual surgery that takes place. And that's costly, the actual surgery. Then there's the post-op treatment.
Right.
And what happens with a lot of women, because in the uterus or the womb, let's talk about the whole womb. If somebody has a full hysterectomy, they're taking their ovaries as well as the uterus.
Right.
The ovaries is where estrogen is produced, it's where progesterone is produced, and also where testosterone is produced. Now, the majority of those hormones is produced in the ovaries. You also have the adrenals, but the adrenals is more like reactive to the ovaries, right? So with progesterone, for instance, it's produced, majority of progesterone, which is the actual female hormone, is produced in the corpus luteum, which are cells within the ovaries that are responsible to help also with fertility, with the actual cycle that a woman has, right? The follicle phase of the luteus phase and the follicle phase, right? So testosterone, which is also responsible for the libido of women, and also their muscle tone and everything, that is produced by the ovaries, also slightly in the adrenals, right? So we're dealing with, you're cutting off, like what Dr. Amun said earlier, you're disrupting your whole endocrine and hormonal system by the removal of these glands. So hormone replacement therapy takes place, and there's a big issue with hormone replacement therapy. Where are they getting the hormones from? Right? So they're using animals like horses, pigs, cows, whatever, and they're taking these hormones from these animals, and then women now become estrogen dominant, which is a big, that is the pandemic with women, estrogen dominance. The amount of progesterone being produced in comparison to estrogen, but the focus has been on estrogen. So it causes a plethora of disorders, diseases, conditions, including cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer. These are the, estrogen positive cancers which women, suffer from across the world. And it's usually after hysterectomy.
I think one of the scariest things is that what Dr. Amsu, just to add to what he was saying, is that when they remove the ovaries, it pushes women into menopause straight away. It kickstarts them. And immediately. So you don't have that stage where it's premenopause to go into full-blown menopause. It flings you straight into full-blown menopause. And another factor, they are performing full hysterectomies on young women from the age of 25.
Wow.
So imagine a 25-year-old could possibly go into full menopause. That just sounds ludicrous.
And that's on the back of having an operation that probably wasn't necessary. 75% was saying, right?
Right.
So it's like a vicious cycle, because they're saying that they're performing the hysterectomies because of potential cancers, of maybe benign tumors such as fibroids, so they're not necessary.
That's only 10% though.
Well, hold on.
Benign tumors. You're getting rid of a benign tumor, but in the long run you're causing
potential cancers, which would so a very vicious circle. One thing I want to maybe segue to as well, and hopefully you've got the numbers or at least some information around this, is in what we do, we often hear about racial disparity in healthcare, right? In the availability of health, the disparity in what procedures African American women or Native American women are being urged to take. How does that reflect, if at all, in hysterectomies? Do we look at those numbers and see
so with hysterectomies? Let's jump right in.
There's
blatantly 78% of all hysterectomies
Wow.
are performed on African American women.
Wow.
We're talking about 78% of hysterectomies performed in the world are performed on African American women.
So out of that
Right.
600,000 plus, you're looking at 468,000 roughly are performed on
African American. That's just here in the United States.
That's
You're
just
saying
here in the United
globally,
States.
that's amplified
Globally
even more. Yeah.
amplified even more. So, all right, we say African American women, but let's just be
say
straight.
black
Black women,
Women of color, black and brown women.
they're thrown into this hysterectomy situation as a first option.
You're right.
Oh, you got fibroids, hysterectomy. You got sweat on your elbows, hysterectomy. You see what I'm saying? It's like everything hysterectomy. It's pushed as the first. This is your first option and best.
Right.
Your first and best option is hysterectomy.
Well, let's give you a real scenario.
Go ahead, yeah.
I know we're fathers here. We all have daughters, so we got some real life cases where, at the age of maybe as young as, like I said, 23, 25, they go for a regular checkup. They find or they locate a couple of fibroids. This is the gynecologist's approach, is there may be small size of a pea, maybe 2 or 3 of those. We'll monitor them, nothing to worry about. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to give you the pill because you might be suffering, the women might be suffering with heavy cramping,
Side effects, right.
bleeding, etc. So here's the pill to regulate that. That's selling them up. As we all know, the pill is the estrogen pill, which is the root cause to feed these fibroids to get bigger. 6 to 8 months now, the condition, the cycle, the pain, the discomfort has increased tremendously. And now they're waiting because they know what they've done. Let's just be real. They know what they've done. And now they're waiting for it to come to have another ultrasound where now these fibroids have maybe doubled, tripled, quadrupled in size. And now you've got serious complications. So here they introduce the hysterectomy. And that is a day-to-day, real-life scenarios that are taking place, and that's scary.
And thanks for sharing that. And maybe not to get into too much of the politics, but I guess we're here. Let's discuss that. So out of that, 78%, 75% of all women, all hysterectomies are carried out on women of color.
Right.
Dialing back a little bit, the journey from being diagnosed with having maybe a benign fibroids or endometriosis or PCOS or something like that, to getting the hysterectomy, how much of that is driven by any kind of social or racially motivated directives, or how much of it is actually because African American women per se are more susceptible to those conditions? Do you see what I mean? It's like,
all right. So African American women or black women are 10 times more likely to get fibroids than any other race, right? That's problem number one. The way how black women, and we'll go into that. Right? But here's politically why the hysterectomy, right? And why, black women are more susceptible because black women do not, or black people, let's talk about black people in general. Black people in general do not exercise their rights to protect themselves. Right? We're not educated in civics enough. So when we get an opinion from a doctor, we'll go with that opinion. My doctor says we're less likely to say, I'm going to get a second opinion. Why? Because it's going to cost us to go see somebody else, and we're not financially, we're not financially savvy like that, right? So we don't get the second opinion. Now here is where we're coming from all the women we've seen, and the amount of women who we've reversed their fibroids and we've helped them to, eliminate their fibroids and everything. They were all told you need a hysterectomy by their gynecologist.
Right.
Minimum myomectomy.
Right. But here's the conflict of interest. Gynecologists perform the hysterectomies.
Right.
A gynecologist that runs their own practice and that they know they're selling you something, they're upselling, they're going for the kill, basically. Right. They're going for the money shot, straight up and down. Right? So they've been trained in performing that surgery. So usually hysterectomies are largely performed by gynecologists. So they're looking at the dollar amount. And remember, we're talking about a $5 billion industry. Probably even more, probably like $7 billion right now. $7 billion industry, so it's good business for them.
Sure.
Right? Then there's the kickbacks with the hormone replacement therapies and all the, the antibiotics or whatever else, or medications taken for post-op treatment, they're getting kickbacks from that too. So gynecology is a lucrative business.
Absolutely.
And it's also built, just like slavery, built on the backs of blacks. You know, so we have this Black Wombs Matter. While we're in this whole Black Lives Matter, the whole thing is Black Wombs Matter. The gynecologists are dirty. They're dirty. They're putting dirt on black women, and they do not care about, you know, because what is it? 75% of those hysterectomies are unnecessary. This is something that was brought out by the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
They don't
right?
follow the guidelines.
They don't follow the guidelines. So the guidelines are supposed to be, okay, here's what you can do. Here are alternatives. This is a major surgery over here, which should be last resort, but these are other options. And obviously what we deal with here, we deal with the natural option. Always deal with nutrient therapy. You know, there's an issue going on that your body is not eliminating toxins or it's exacerbating certain things. There's an imbalance. So we deal with nutrient therapy, and it's been very successful. We have over 90% success rate with eliminating fibroids.
Yeah. So, in fact, and thanks for that breakdown, then I think we're getting to the crux of this now. You know, unfortunately, it's sounding like more of this is driven by the financials, more of it is driven by the political will or lack of will to help regulate this and to help maybe save a lot of African American women from not having these unnecessary procedures, life-changing unnecessary procedures at that. You talked about alternatives. Now, I know we didn't have the Fibroid Elimination Bible, and if you haven't read it or seen it, electricfood.com/her elimination. Check out the Fibroid Elimination Bible. Throughout the month of July, we're going to be discussing topics, as I said at the top of the conversation, straight from that book. And this book has been responsible for changing the lives of many women around the world by laying out a pathway, as Dr. Amsu is saying, to eradicate a lot of the conditions they have without the hysterectomies. So talking about the Fibroid Elimination Bible, without, of course, selling the whole book, what are...
Buy it.
Buy the book, right. So without revealing too much of what's inside the book, I think you actually do need the book and other tools as well to actually go through to help this. It's not sort of a quick read and get the solution. But what would women find reading this book? You know, what kind of procedures? Could you give us a quick overview of the program and what women should expect?
And you know, one of the things I'll say before we jump in it is that we understand that the human body is suffering from a condition that is a nutrition dysfunction. It's not a medical, it's a nutrition dysfunction. So how they've been living their lifestyle is a result of them having uterine fibroids. So what we did when we put this program together, we have that knowledge and information. So one of the first things we tackle is your diet, your nutrition. What are you eating? Supplementation, exercise. I mean, your body has to sleep, because through the sleep and proper rest is when the body starts healing itself. We understand that there's a hormone imbalancement. We understand chemicals. We understand that you get the chemicals from the right nutrition, what you eat and intake, how you digest, how you metabolize that. Also, exercise plays a big role. A lot of people don't understand. You take any type of drug, it's singling out one problem. I'm taking that drug, it's singling out one little problem. But when you exercise, you're utilizing so many different systems. You know, your excretory system, your the muscling, you know, your oxygen, everything else is being utilized while I'm exercising. It's not the singling. That's why exercise is so important. It's a key factor. So when we were putting this together in the book for the program, you have from exercise, nutrition, supplementation, resting, sun gazing, even water therapy. It's a whole lifestyle that we've addressed. And each step of the way where we can see how you could be getting intoxicated by estrogen and other chemicals, we try to eliminate that. So this is what is in the book. You know, we've done it for 10, 12 years now of doing this, and we've literally saved thousands of black women's wombs by this book. I mean, I know I went on a little bit, right?
No, but I mean, in a nutshell, it's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
To naturally, and it's also prevention. If, you know, a lot of women are told this, oh, your auntie or your mother, your sisters have got fibroids, that means that, you know, it's hereditary.
Susceptible, right?
Oh, no. Fibroids are not hereditary, not at all. What it is that, and we'll go into it, your lifestyle. You've been eating the same diet, and you know, as the week goes on, we'll go into the whole thing about estrogen receptors. But for now, let's just say you're doing the same crap that your family has been doing. Why you're susceptible to it?
Wow.
So in a nutshell, electric ducts are like the enemies of your gynecologist.
Right. And I was actually going to ask that question as well. So, and again, wonderful breakdowns, information about, you know, what hysterectomies are, why they're performed, who's performing them, some of the disparities there. So as a guide, you know, today, got a snapshot, I'm going to go online, you know, going to order the book. But right now, what should women be asking or telling their OBGYNs about themselves or about the conditions, or, you know, as we try to, you know, arm these women with information, what can we start to tell these women to start to ask or start to do before they, you know, sign their lives away, sign their wounds away?
Well, so immediately, if you've been diagnosed that you have fibroids, and your gynae turns around and says we're going to monitor them, ask them how.
Right.
That's the first. How are you going to monitor my fibroids? What do you mean by monitor?
Right.
What does that mean? Because it means nothing right now. Monitor don't mean shit.
Next time we come out, we'll measure them.
Right.
But there's no day-to-day, there's no
There's
app.
no day-to-day, there's no right.
Test,
there's no right.
Exactly.
So how can I avoid these fibroids growing?
Right.
What
That's
can
the
I
first
do
question.
to stop them from growing? What can I do naturally to shrink, to reduce the size, or to eliminate them altogether? Is there anything on the market for me to be able to do that? If they persist, that
they're not a problem, they're not an issue at the moment.
Well, women who already have large fibroids, if they say you need a hysterectomy, ask them why. Are there any other alternatives to this surgery that you're performing?
Now, what are OBGYNs likely to say in response to that question?
They're most likely to say yes, however, in your condition or in your case, no, because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe because of how many fibroids they have, the size of the fibroids, location, etc. Again,
especially to women who have had children, they'll push the whole, well, if you've already had children, then you don't really need your womb anymore.
Wow.
And this is talk that we've heard gynecologists bare-faced
sitting next to us, just like our Dr. Amsu sitting next to
in
me.
seminars where we're addressing women and we're part of a panel, they'll say that, well, if you've had children already, you know, why suffer? I've got sisters as well. My mum had a hysterectomy. I've got 4 sisters. 3 out of the 4 of my sisters have fibroids. One of them has had a hysterectomy. And she's like, whoop, whoop, no more pain. Oh, I'm so happy. It's like, you have no idea.
What's coming next?
What's coming next? And it will be denial, because a lot of black people live in denial of their pain or their conditions anyway.
And one of the things that they are going to say is, this is the only alternative or the only cure for fibroids not to return. Even if your gynecologist gives you other alternatives, they most likely will suggest by saying the fibroids, though, will return after you had these other procedures. This is the only alternative for them not to return, by removing your wound. So I guess what we want to say to people is, 1, educate yourself, ask for that, ask some numerous of questions, go and do some research, and hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Electric food, electric docs.
Absolutely. Well, listen, folks, once again, you've been watching Electric Docs TV. We've got Dr. Amsu, Dr. Amun, the Electric Docs, and yours truly, Mr. Breaks. And we've been discussing hysterectomies. Again, July is Fibroid Awareness Month, and we proclaimed it Fibroid Elimination Month. So make sure you go to electricfood.com/her elimination. Get some more information, check out the more videos, get the book. There's a soft copy and there's a hard copy as well. And learn about your condition or the condition of a loved one or a family member. And understand that you do have alternatives. There are natural ways, healthy ways to help eradicate something you've been forming for years, right? You don't form fibroids or any of the other female reproductive issues overnight. So it takes a little while to get through it, but you can do it without the hysterectomy, without having to go on HRTs, right? So again, I just want to thank the docs for coming out here.
Thank you for having us.
Again, throughout the month of July, keep plugged in. We'll be putting out flyers and information. Maybe every other day we'll be doing another talk. Again, we'll be going through the book. And listen, stay tuned, stay locked. Electric Docs TV. Peace out, folks.
Peace.